People tell me all the time that they're not reading because they're too busy, they're too distracted, and they're too tired. Welcome to the modern world, which probably explains why fewer than half of Americans have completed even one book in the past 12 months. And that's why today in this video, I'm going to share 7 practical tips and tricks that have helped me to keep my own reading life on track during seasons where I'm especially tired and busy and otherwise distracted. Whether you're just getting started as a reader and you keep stumbling and struggling to get that process going, or whether you've been a reader for a long time but are just going through a rough patch. In this video, these 7 practical tips are going to help you rescue your reading life. And if you stick around to the end, I'll share a bonus tip that really helped supercharge my reading life that I'm still doing to this day. So I've organized these tips into 3 main buckets. The first of those is what to read. The first thing that we really need to nail is what we're reading. And the number 1 tip then is to pick something that you love, something that you'll really enjoy, something that engages you and captures your attention. If you're going through a rough patch, don't pick a book that you feel like, about. Pick a book that you're really genuinely excited to get started on. Tip number 2 is to pick something that's relatively easy to read given your own reading capabilities. Look, there's so many great books out there that are really difficult to penetrate, and they are totally worth the time when you do it. But that still doesn't mean that when you're going through a season where you're especially busy and distracted and tired, that that's the right book for you at that time. So don't feel bad about picking a book that's on the easier end of things so that it's more accessible to you. And this often deals with the topic, maybe the genre, and also the length of the book. Sometimes for me, if I'm in one of those seasons, picking an 800-page book isn't going to be conducive to my success. So tip number 2 is to pick something relatively easy that doesn't require massive amounts of concentration. The third tip is to read more than one book at a time. And this may sound counterintuitive if you are busy and tired and distracted. Why would you want to have more than one book going on at the same time? Well, what it allows you to do, among other things, is pick one book that fits the first 2 tips that I described, that you're really excited about, you love, that's relatively easy given your reading capabilities, that's going to fit with those and therefore be really accessible and easy. But you could have another book, 1 or 2 other books going on that are the more challenging reads that you really still want to get to. So this allows you to really have the best of both worlds. But another way you can leverage this, if you have 2 or even 3 books going on at the same time, is sometimes for me, there's a book that I love. Right now, this morning, I'm reading The Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle, which is a book that I love. I've read it before and I really enjoy it. But this morning, I just wasn't in the mood to read that kind of writing. And so instead, I picked up Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, which I'm roughly 3/4 of the way through. And so what it allows you to do then is to pick the book from the books that you're actively reading that fits the mood that you're in right then, which is going to help you keep reading even when you're otherwise tired and distracted. Still looking at what to read, tip number 4 is to pick something that you'll feel accomplished for having read. So you can really think of a matrix of 3 different qualities you're grading these books on. One is, again, how easy it is to read. Another one is how much you like it, how engaging it is. But a third would be how good you're going to feel for having accomplished it. There are some books that are really easy to read and that you might enjoy, but having read them, you're not really going to feel like you accomplished anything. So if you can find that sweet spot of a book that's engaging and interesting and you love, that's also relatively easy to read, but that you feel like accomplished for having read it, that's really the golden ticket for seasons when you're tired and distracted and busy. The next category of tips I want to look at is when to read. And while this technically isn't one of the 7, I would definitely say you want to read only after you've subscribed to The Morning Light on YouTube. Studies have shown that people who subscribe to The Morning Light are 3 times more likely to succeed in their reading, really in whatever they do, and they also go on to become more intelligent and better looking. So make sure you hit subscribe to the Morning Light channel. But let's get back to the 7 tips that are going to help you keep your reading life on track. Tip number 5 is that especially if you feel like being tired is derailing your reading life, don't try to read late at night before bed, especially not while laying in bed, because you're just going to fall asleep. Instead, try reading for just 15 to 20 minutes in the morning with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee once you get about and going and you have a little bit more energy. In case you want to try this, which I highly recommend, I'll put a link in the description to some other videos I've built around establishing a morning routine, what my morning routine looks like that I've been using for about 6 years. It's worked really well for me. And so feel free to check those out if you want to test out the morning reading time. But in general, tip number 5 is just pick a time to read when you know your energy levels are generally high. Don't try to pick a time to read that you're really sluggish and tired. Try to select those times where you have more energy, and keep in mind that it doesn't have to be an hour blocked out of your schedule. Just 15 to 20 minutes a day is plenty to keep on reading. The last category of tips is where to read. And so tip number 6 is not to read laying down. This almost never works out unless your goal is to fall asleep by reading, in which case that's perfect. But if you want to get some reading in, don't read while laying down. I typically read seated at my desk with a reading lamp. You want to read somewhere where it's pretty well lit, not in really dim or dingy lighting. I've also sometimes read while walking or standing, especially when I'm really tired. That helps me stay engaged with the reading more and to stay awake, because even for me, it's hard to fall asleep while standing up. Another thing to try would be to read outside, especially if you have a backyard or patio or park you can go to. I've tried all of those and really enjoy them. And inside of this tip, I would just say switch it up sometimes. If it's starting to feel stale sitting down reading in your normal location, then walk outside for a little bit. Even if you just switch it up every once in a while, that can help keep things new and fresh and keep you going in times that are otherwise sluggish. Tip number 7 is don't read with your phone anywhere that you can hear or see it. In fact, this doesn't just apply to your phone, it applies to all screens. Do not read where you have screens that are on, that are could potentially get your attention. They could have a notification pop up. Make sure if you have to read somewhere where screens are around, just turn them off. But definitely keep your phone in another room or turn it off completely so that you don't have that distraction. And I can't overemphasize how huge this tip is. Shut out those distractions, don't have screens around, just engage with the book that's in front of you. I realize most of these tips are fairly intuitive, but you'd be surprised how many people that are struggling to read are neglecting at least one of them. And in my own personal experience, I've found that sticking to these tips and practices consistently has helped me to read consistently for a decade. But there's one more bonus tip that was crucial for me breaking into getting started as a serious reader, and that is to read in community, to read with other people. This most often looks like some sort of book club or book reading group. You can possibly find these at a local library or a local bookstore, or you can start one yourself with friends or coworkers or family members. And if you struggle to do that, if you can't find people in your community who are interested in the same kind of reading that you are, or the same books, then you can also check things out online. There are some really good ones on Substack, for example. In fact, you can check out The Morning Light, both on YouTube and Substack, where we will occasionally do things like that as well. And if you're local in Florence, South Carolina, you can join what's called a 30-day reading initiative. But the big idea is just to find other people to read with. This holds you accountable. It also makes the reading more fun when you get together and discuss it. So if being busy, tired, or distracted has kept you from reading as much as you should, here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to pick a book that you really enjoy, that you're excited about, that's relatively easy and accessible for you, and that it's something you'll be excited for having completed. And then I want you to look at your schedule, look at your day, and pick a time of day when you generally have a higher level of energy, and schedule in just 15 to 20 minutes of reading time in that block, somewhere in that time frame where you have more energy. And lastly, I want you to pick a place that you can read without screens and distractions around, especially without a phone or something that's going to notify you or interrupt you. And if you do those things, I'm pretty confident you'll find that your reading life sails along just fine, even in the midst of a busy and tiresome life. And if you found any of these tips particularly helpful or useful, either now implementing them or if you've done something similar in the past, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit like. That helps us out a lot. And you can also subscribe for a lot more great content that's going to help you read more and better. See you next time.